Good morning, everyone. Looks like we have, I think everybody that we're expecting is on the call or close to, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right. There we go. All right, so we wanted to start by having everyone enter their first and last name into the chat. And you can also put your program name, number if you know it, but we just want to make sure we keep track of everyone who's here and get to have everyone introduce themselves at least via chat. So if you could go ahead and put that information in the chat, that would be great. All right, and I know most of you are pros at this point, and we've done a few of these virtually already, but just remember to mute yourself and when you're not speaking, and you're free to show your face or hide your face, whatever you feel comfortable with throughout the day. We would encourage you when you are presenting to show your face if you feel comfortable with that, but otherwise, if you want to black the screen, that's totally fine. If you're calling in, if you could enter your participant ID, and if your name doesn't appear the way it should, if you could rename yourself just so we can make sure we know who all is here today. This is a relatively long day. I know 9 to 4 on Zoom is a bit daunting sometimes. So if you need to move around, stretch, if you need to attend to a kid or feed your animals or anything else that you might need to do, feel free to do so. You can go under the Zoom option for participants and indicate that you're away, or you can just write in the chat if you've stepped away. And if you need any assistance, if you're having trouble with a presentation, if you're trying to load that, or if you're having a hard time getting some of your providers on the call, you feel free to reach out to Lisa. You can call her or email her if you need anything throughout the day. All right, here's the general agenda for today. The times might fluctuate a little bit depending on how long it takes us to get through presentations and things like that. But we'll start with some reflections on how the Father Engagement PDSA went, the final round. I'll present some data on core measures that we collected at a learning collaborative level, and then we'll move into final presentation. So having each of the programs talk about their final results for the last round of PDSAs on father engagement. After lunch, we'll switch gears and move into developmental monitoring and promotion. So we'll talk through the key drivers diagram and the SMART aims, and then we'll review some of the measures and think through what projects you might want to take on in this next round. We'll then have breakout rooms where you're with your own program, and in that program, you can, sorry, somebody just stepped outside my window and they're right by my face. It's a little distracting. We'll do the breakout rooms where you and your programs can talk through what you want to do for the final PDSA or the new PDSA on child development, monitoring and promotion. So you'll have about an hour and a half to develop your new PDSA template, go through the change theory diagram and any other documents or measures you want to start thinking through. We'll then finish up with having each program present just a little bit about where they think they're going for the next PDSA. So talking through SMART aim, change theory diagram if you've prepared it, what measures you might want to use, and your plan. And then we'll wrap up for the day. Any questions or comments before I get started into the actual content for today? Okay. This might look familiar. We talked about it at the last learning session. In addition to all of the measures and the data that you collect at a PDSA level for your programs, we also collect core measures across all of the programs for the Learning Collaborative SMART aims. So what you can see in the top half of this table is we have 4 core measures that are focused on family engagement. So tracking how families are involved in the program. So we have the percent of families that received all of their expected home visits for a given month. We have the total percent capacity served by a program. And then we also track retention, so the percent of families that are still in the program several months later. So are they still in the program 3 months later, 6 months later, for example? Then in the orange, you can see we also have core measures specifically related to father engagement for this round of the Learning Collaborative. And we look at the percent of families where a father completed at least one visit. We look at the percent of successful outgoing father referrals to community agencies. And we look at the percent of primary caregiver fathers who are recruited into home visiting. And then we also track the SMART aim measure. So that's that father engagement measure that everyone completed every few months. And we look at 2 and 4 month versions of those measures. So I'm going to start with presenting some of the information we have on general family engagement and what that's looked like over the last few years, as well as what it's looked like more recently. And I know that these graphs can be daunting, so stick with me. What I want you to focus on really is that thick gray line. That's the trend line. That's the average across all programs. So even though you see a lot of different lines representing each of the individual programs, we're looking at a collaborative level, what's happening. And what you can see with that dark gray line is that since about 2018, we're increasing the reached visit goals. So we look to see, given a program, how many visits a family should receive in a month, what percentage of those visits do they actually complete? And that trend line is going up, getting closer to the 70% mark, indicating that about 70% of the visits a family should receive, given the model, they do. And this is for PAT specifically. For Safe Care, we're seeing a slightly different trend just in terms of what it looks a little bit flatter, a little bit more stable over time, and it's hovering around that 50% mark. So families receiving about 50% of the visits that they are supposed to in a given month based on the Safe Care model. Here we have for PAT the visit completion rate. So out of all the visits that were scheduled, how many actually took place? And we see that PAT has been really consistent at about 75% of all visits that are scheduled actually end up being completed. And for Safe Care, there was a little bit of a dip, it looks like around 2017, but it's been steadily increasing and now is hovering around that 80% mark. So again, out of all the visits that are scheduled, about 80% of them are completed for Safe Care. Here we have 3 different graphs. We're looking here at retention. So we're looking at 1 month after enrollment, 3 months, and 6 months, and what's the general pattern. And for PAT, what we see is that 1 month after enrolling in the program, over 75% of families are still engaged. Then by 3 months, we're still above the 75% mark. And even at 6 months, we're still seeing that families are just hovering under that 75% mark. So really consistent engagement across 1, 3, and 6 months for PAT. And then for Safe Care, we're seeing, again, at 1 month, above 75%. 3 months, it dips a little bit under the 75% mark. And then by 6 months, we're around 50% of families that were enrolled are still engaged 6 months later. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the father engagement measure that we've been collecting as a learning collaborative over the past 18 months or so. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this measure at this point, but what we have is we ask families about a father figure in the child's life. And as you know, we purposely define this really broadly to include beyond just the biological father, any foster parent or adoptive father, stepfather, grandfather, anybody who was in that child's life who was filling a father figure role, regardless of the exact relationship. And so we asked if a person who fit that definition existed in the family. And for every family that did have a father figure, we asked about how engaged the father was in certain child rearing activities. So we asked how often the father figure was spending time with the child, changing the child's diaper or helping to manage bathroom routines, helping with mealtime activities, using the mother's desired discipline practices, providing comfort when the child was hurt or upset, caring for the child by himself without supervision, and helping the child to learn new things. And fathers could indicate, or mothers could indicate of the fathers, that fathers never did this, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. This just presents some information on how often we were getting father engagement data. And what you can see is the trend line is relatively low. So most visits did not have data on father engagement, but we did see a slight uptick across the Learning Collaborative with more data coming in over time. And this looks at the percent of visits with father engagement data. And we can see that it increased to about 15% of all visits had some father engagement data coming in. To remind you, our SMART aim for father engagement at the Learning Collaborative level was that collective participation in a father engagement learning collaborative will significantly increase average father involvement ratings based on that core measure I just showed you among all clients with an identified father figure by June of this year. Here, what you're seeing are mean levels across all the programs in terms of the individual items. So we can see, by and large, mothers rated high levels of father involvement. The most commonly reported response was always for all of these items in terms of how often father was spending time or helping with bathroom or mealtime activities. So really pretty high levels of father engagement were being reported. And the same is true for the other 4 items. So again, we're seeing relatively high rates of father engagement, at least as reported by mom. Then we wanted to see, well, are we changing father engagement? Is it increasing over time? Is it staying the same, decreasing? What you can see here is for PAT at 2 months and at 4 months, which programs were reporting increases or decreases in father engagement. So the increases are in that teal color. So we're seeing that for several of the programs, they were reporting increases in father engagement at the 2-month mark and the 4-month mark. Here's another way to look at it. This is the change in scores from 2 months to 4 months. And that dashed blue line is the average across all programs. And so what we can see for PAT is that both at 2 months and at 4 months, there was a significant increase in father engagement scores. And the increase was actually larger at 4 months relative to 2 months. So there was more improvement over time for the PAT programs in father engagement. And then for Safe Care, we're also seeing an increase over time. The increase for Safe Care was actually larger at 2 months relative to 4 months. But again, we are seeing that over time, more engagement for fathers relative to prior to the collaborative. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, feedback about those graphs, information, and what I just presented? All right. I know graphs are your favorite. We're going to move on to the individual program presentations. And what we're going to do now, I put in order who we're going to hear from first. And so what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears. I'll stop presenting and we'll have each of the programs pull up their presentations and give an overview of how their final PDSA went. If you're having any challenges or if you prefer that Lisa pulls it up on her computer, she can do that as well. Just let us know. Otherwise, you're free to present on your own. So our first one up is PCCT PAT. So Marisol, would you be able to present? You want Lisa to pull up? What would you be most comfortable with?
Hi, sorry. I have my presentation ready. It did not let me share it, but I can try again.
Yeah, probably because I was sharing, so it might let you now.
Okay. Okay. So you guys can hear me well and you can see it, right?
Yes, it's still in kind of the notes, so I don't know if you want to press,
Let me,
yeah, right there.
yeah.
That looks perfect.
Okay. Going to move you guys a little bit. Okay. So good morning. I'm the manager, the program manager of the PhD program. And so I'm going to share now all results of the PDS. The team worked really hard. So let's share what we accomplished. Okay, so the Parent Child Center of Tulsa, we are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we have provided home visits for more than 20 years. We are a Parents as Teachers affiliate, and right now we have 2 MIECHV parent educators and 3 OCAP parent educators. We have 2 opening positions, and so I will share also how this part affected in some way or PDSA. For MIECHV, for parent educators, visit 32 families a month. That's kind of the average. And in these numbers, I actually counted when we were kind of fully staffed, you know, like I said, there were a few changes, but I counted from when we started the PDSA to practically ended, and so these are the numbers, the average. So, oh no, this was for a year. I remember you guys were asking for a year, a monthly, so that's how I took it. The OCAP parent educators visit 81 families a month. Lower this again. I don't know that I think that maybe I skipped my title. No, this is it. Okay, so our PDSA was based on increasing frequency of fathers completing PAT activities with their children. Our key driver was improving relationship with fathers, and the reason for this is that we wanted to strengthen the bond between father and father figures and the children. We started February 2021, and our SMART aim was increase each month 25% the number of PAT activities that father and father figures complete with their children. Or outcome measures. So the number of activities, the first outcome measure was the number of activities that father completed the week prior to their next home visit. So the idea was that we will provide information and we will give a week to present to parents to have time to complete it. So that's kind of what he's talking about prior to the home visit. The process measure is the number of time that parent educators provide PAT activities for fathers to complete with children, and the number of times that moms will demonstrate these activities. So the parent educators will be demonstrating the activities to mothers so they can do the same with dads. And the other process measure was also the number of families that sent us pictures showing father and father figures completing PAT activities with their children. Or disruptor measures were that perhaps no fathers or father figures were going to be available, or mothers will not demonstrate PAT activities to fathers. Or change theory diagram. So it was increase, I guess a purpose. It was increase the frequency that fathers completed PAT activities with the children, or process measures where the number of times that PAT provided activities to fathers. And so the disruptor below that you can see is that perhaps, no fathers or father figures were available. The other process measure was the number of times that mothers demonstrated to fathers the PAT activities, and the number of families who sent fathers and father-children interaction pictures. So their structure was that the mothers did not demonstrate activity, and therefore, fathers will not be sending pictures because they will not have completed activities. And I guess our driver was improving the relationship with fathers. Our plan was that the parent educators will implement the change. Targeted within the change was that all families who were enrolled by February and had a father and father figure present will be involved. We also are talking about that when we talk about PEs implementing the change, we were talking about only the ones who were fully trained by then, which we have 3 new parent educators in the program who were not. So those families, they were not getting families, of course, they were still untrained, and so they did not participate in this. What we provided welcome letter packages per se, where was a welcome letter and extra information about, the importance of the father engagement, like some calendar activities, some handouts. We put like really empowering pictures, that we provided. So the family was receiving parent-child interaction activities relevant to fathers. We really pay attention to, when we were creating this, trying to get activities that will be fun for parents, and that they could do it at any time. They will not require a lot of items to complete them. That they will easy to explain to, from mom to dad. The parent educators demonstrated PAT activities to moms, so they could do the same with that. And we encourage families to share photos or videos of dads completing the PAT activities with their children. We provided gift cards to dad who sent us photos and videos. And that was like any time that they will send us a photo or video, we will provide that. So if a dad was completing a second activity, even in a month or so, they will get that too. So we felt that really the gift card that we selected, Steve, our VP, suggested, we have different ideas, and I think that it was worth it. We went for a QT card that was, in some way more personalized for fathers that, they can use everywhere. We did virtual visits. By this time, we were not including in person. We did not have the option to do in person, but we did virtual visits. And when we started in March, really, because we needed to wait for all our questions in both databases that we are working to be ready. In the last PSA, in the last cycle, I'm sorry, we have issues with that. Trying to capture data and it wasn't correct. And this time we just wait. So instead of really starting in February, we started in March when everything was ready to go. And I think we keep capturing data like at the beginning of July. So the process we do is that the PEs gave welcome, letters, packages to father figures, explaining the importance of engagements. We provided relevant activities from PAT. We encourage families to provide photos and videos. Like I said, we give them a quick trip gift card to everyone who sent us one. And so observation. So we noticed that at the beginning of the cycle, were a little more fathers and figures available. Due to the quarantine, right, when we started this one. It wasn't as many involved as in the past, like when we did our PSA to the reading, but we noticed that in the first months we have a little bit higher because a lot of parents were quarantined. They were not a good number of our families with fathers involved work in construction, and there was not the ability to be working. Everybody was kind of in quarantine. So we received more photos and videos at the beginning of the cycle. That was also something that we noticed. I think that was new. The gift cards that we selected was a success. Thank you, Steve, for that. Oops, I need to go back. Hold on. I think I need to review. There you go. We keep also double checking our data, making sure that not only the MIECHV numbers were counted, but also our grant from OGAP. And we also have 2 different databases in our agency. We're trying to transition to one, but in the meantime, we keep making sure that, those numbers are correct, because in the past it has been a little bit hectic. So our outcome measures, this was a number of activities that were distributed at the beginning. And we see how many parents and some were involved. The water process measures. So we keep seeing in some way like the increase. We provided the activities, parents, and we started practical in March. So you guys start seeing how it increases. Some of the parents are actually completing them. They're receiving them, they're completing them. And then we will see the number of fathers who send us texts. From the beginning, like I said, we didn't have or parents base per se wasn't that big. We did have parents available in the households, but we only were having 4 parent educators working on this, and one of them was part-time. So the data itself, it wasn't that big from the beginning. So that's why you also see, what it could be a small number of parents. So we were getting a good number of texts and videos, as you can tell, and then with the months, they start going down. So the disruptor measure was that fathers might not be available, right, in the house, or that maybe mothers will not provide the information and they will not complete it. But in here, what we noticed is that at the beginning, fathers were available in the life of the child. I mean, they have, kids have a father figure. However, the fathers, they start going back, to work. At the beginning, they were staying more at home, and then we start going back to work as everything and the economy starts getting open, and then, starts going down. So the interpretation, we experienced an increase in the number of fathers who completed the PAT activities in the first months. Like I mentioned, mainly from March to May. And we did receive an increase of 25% of the number of fathers who completed the PAT activities in general. So we actually met our goal there. During the process, we provided the type of PAT activities that we provided were appropriate based on the results. It means, fathers actually were engaging in those activities and they wanted to complete it. And they sent us also, a good number of videos, like I was showing you in the graphs. And that is structure, like I mentioned, so father in February and later in May, they were a fairly good participation, but later we get out of the quarantine, I guess, the economy started opening up a little bit more, and then clients will have to go back to work, fathers will have to go back to work, and also will go back to work out of the state. So the time that they spend with their families, opportunities they have to spend time with their families was even less. Our lessons learned is that we were able to increase the 25% number of activities that father figures completed with their children. Yay, team, you did a great job. Thank you for your hard work. We predicted an increase of 20%, but we actually make it to the 25. We recognize as fathers we're not able to stay engaged in these PBS as in the past. One of the things with the Zoom fatigue too, created by COVID, but also like I think that earlier, right? The parents, the fathers have to go back to work and some to be out of state. Another thing on this is that our agency experience, staff turnover that affect the data that we were capturing. And from the beginning, we did not have, like a full staff. So we were getting really for like, there were 3 parent educators and 1 part-time. Then we have 3 new ones who they were not getting to participate in this because I didn't have other families. And at the end, we have also 2 open positions. So this was our results. Thank you so much. Thank you for my team. I think again they did a good job, and they put a lot of effort on this.
Thank you so much, Marisol. Any questions, thoughts, comments from Marisol and her group? I was wondering, Marisol, for the gift cards that you gave, how much did fathers receive for sending in the pictures?
They were getting $15 quick trip gift card.
Okay.
For every time that they send it. So some of our fathers actually did 2 activities during the month, or they would send us texts or videos. And for every time that they will send us a video, obviously it have to be different, or a photo, we will give them 1. So originally I was planning to just get all those at the end of the month, but I just thought that it will actually encourage them to get more photos or do more activities if we will give it as they were, like immediate notifications and what.
That's a great idea. I like that. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for presenting, Marisol. Great work to you and your team. That's fantastic seeing that 25% increase. That's pretty huge.
I know, right? We were doubting on that one, but we did it. Yay.
All right, thank you. So we will hear from Sarah now, also from PCCT, but now the Safe Care side. Sarah, are you able to present? Do you want Lisa to pull anything up?
Yeah, I can pull it up, I think. And my camera just went out on me. It was working all day yesterday, but.
That's all right. We know how this goes. I think we lost connection this morning, so I'm glad we were able to get back on because it was sketchy for us too. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and share, that sounds great.
All right. Okay, so my name is Sarah Jabber. I'm the program manager for the Safe Care at the Parent-Child Center of Tulsa. And I kind of came in on this at the tail end. So we'll see how well this goes. So like I said, we're located in Tulsa. Safe Care has been with the Parent-Child Center for about 17 years now. We have 5 parent educators, 2 are MIECHV funded and 3 are privately funded. And we have 2 Spanish-speaking parent educators and 3 English-speaking. They all have an average caseload of about 12 families, and they're in the program for about 12 to 18 months. From December 1 of 2020 to, those dates are wrong, but we served about 79 families.
Hey, Sarah, sorry to interrupt. We still only see that front intro slide. I don't know if you're on presenter mode or.
It is, let's see.
I don't know if you have dual
Showing
screen.
on my screen that it's going to the next one.
Yeah, because we can only see, it looks like you've opened it up, but you haven't gone to presentation mode. And so we only see that first intro slide.
Okay. Let's see.
Now that's visible.
Oh, now,
It was visible.
yeah, now it went back.
So are you seeing all the slides on the side?
No.
Yeah, we're seeing it looks like when you put it together, when you make it, not when you present it, is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you hit that button, let's start from the beginning.
That's what I did. Now are you, okay.
You have two screens.
Yeah.
You might have to switch the display so it's showing the other screen.
Yeah, so you may have to stop sharing, and then when you share again, select a screen and not the application.
Gotcha. Okay, let's do this one. Oh, now it's being funky.
You can just scroll through them like that. That was
Yeah.
fine.
That would work.
Yeah, I think I might have to because I don't know what is.
That's totally fine. Oh, now we see it.
It looks big.
Yes.
Okay, because that's not the view I have.
Okay, so hit the next screen and we'll see. It should make sure it works. You go to the next slide.
Is it not moving?
No.
Cool.
That's all right. If you want to just open it back up to the original and then just, go slide
And
by slide.
someone else share the screen?
Yeah, does Lisa have a copy of this?
She
have
should.
it. Yeah, I
All
have
right,
it.
Lisa, do you want to pull it up?
Yeah.
All right, let's try Lisa.
Let me see.
I have it as well, folks. If Lisa, if you can't get it up, I can certainly run it from my end.
Mine does not look like what you just had up. It doesn't have all the graphics and stuff.
Okay, so it might be an older version. All right.
I thought I sent you that one.
Let me see.
I can run it, you guys, if
Yeah, Steve, if you want to pull it up, that might be
for sure.
best.
Let's see here. Okay. Can you all see that now?
No, it's just doing the same thing that it was doing for Sarah, but if you want to just scroll through and just hit slide by slide, I think that's
Sounds
fine.
good.
There you go. All right, so we heard that one, right? Or-
Yes.
Yes.
So we're on
All
slide
right,
3.
perfect. All right.
Sorry, guys.
Perfect, Sarah. It happens. We've all been there.
So the key drivers was parental engagement. We selected this intervention due in part to COVID-19. We've seen a little bit of a reduction in family engagement and retention. So the overall goal was to improve engagement and the number of completed visits. This was started in February of this year. The SMART aim that we had was to increase parental engagement with the parent educators by encouraging self-care for the caregivers, by providing information about the importance of self-care with different ideas of what self-care could be, to be completed one time weekly, to increase completed visits by 10%. Outcome measures, again, were the percent of completed visits. The process was the number of self-care activities completed by the caregivers weekly. And some disruptors were the mother or father not willing to do self-care, caregiver maybe not being able to find childcare to be able to do that self-care. And then also the parent educator forgets to send those ideas of self-care to the caregivers. So this is our change theory diagram. So you can kind of see it's laid out what we just kind of went over. So the goal was to increase engagement and parents complete that one activity weekly. And then the disruptors maybe being, they just don't want to do self-care or is unable to find childcare to complete. And then parent educator sends and discusses activities. Another disruptor, they don't send the activity. Mom self-reports and hopefully leads to increased completed weekly visits and improved engagement. So who is going to implement these things? It would be the existing staff. The caregivers in the family are the ones who are targeted within the change. So the parent educators were going to distribute activities for the fathers to complete with the child so that the mother can find the time for some self-care. And by engaging in self-care, mothers and fathers will feel less stressed and more supported, and then therefore hopefully engage more in the home visits. Those were mostly done virtually. And that was within Tulsa County. And it was ongoing from February to June. So the step-by-step recipe for intervention implementation during the visit activity will be discussed with the caregiver. Information will be sent to the family, so activity will occur sometime during that week. And the parent educators provided those. So our outcome measures, so the number of completed visits increased compared to the cycle before, but they decreased slightly overall. But not very much, it looks like. And then the process measures, about 5 to 7 moms and dads consistently completed the self-care activities each week. It kind of goes down a little bit in March. And then again, towards the end of it in June, and I'm not really sure why that was happening. The disruptor measures, the most common were reported for parents not completing was because they couldn't find the time to do it, or they didn't have childcare, or just those overall time constraints. So like I said, overall, the percent of completed visits decreased just slightly from the last cycle to the current one. Overall, 14 moms and 14 dads complete at least one self-care activity during the cycle. And again, those most common reported disruptors were childcare issues, or just couldn't find the time to partake in some self-care activities. So some lessons that I think were learned, although families did report engaging in some self-care, it seemed like encouraging self-care for mothers and fathers did not result in any real increase in family engagement. Again, because of those different challenges, which were childcare and time constraints, I've also some input from parent educators were also that they didn't really understand what self-care was and how to implement self-care. And then some other parent educators also mentioned that they had a whole caseload full of people who had no father figure in the home. So there was another big barrier to that as a piece of that engagement. And so I think this is something that we can maybe adapt. You know, currently parent educators struggle engaging the parent to meet over Zoom or phone calls due to the pandemic. We are back in the homes right now. Some of the struggles have been families stressed with children in and out of school, needing resources or not having the technology skills or the technology provided to them, internet access or a tablet or computer to get on Zoom if it's a virtual visit. And then parent educators have had a difficult time in covering that safe care materials with lessons during this time. So we've started doing a little bit more of face-to-face home visits. And hopefully we can revisit this and adapt it to meet some family needs in the future. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Steve, for stepping in and helping. Any comments, questions, thoughts for Sarah about their project?
Helen, I'd just like to say thank you to Marisol and the PA team and Sarah and the Safe Care team for your work in this area. Great job, guys. Thank you.
I agree. And I was going to also say thank you, Sarah, for stepping in. I know this was a challenge. It was not easy stepping in mid-project and taking over and figuring out what we were doing and how we were doing it and all of that. So you were great in sticking with the project and learning all the acronyms and getting up to speed very quickly. So excited to have you start fresh on a new project from the ground up and see how that goes. So thanks, Sarah, for
yes, thank
all
you
your
so
hard
much.
work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna hear from Cap Tulsa next. Ariane, you ready to go? Do you need any help?
I think I'm fine, thank you.
Wonderful.
Let's see. Oops. Can you see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, so, well, this is a presentation for Cap Tulsa. So Cap Tulsa is a nonprofit organization that helps young children in lower income families to grow up and achieve economic success. We have been in operation since 1990. And the Learning at Home team has been established on 2013. We have follow the PAT model. We have all MIECHV families. We have 5 parent educators. 2 of them speak Spanish and 1 speaks Sami. Every parent educator have 20 families in their caseload, and they visit twice a month for 1 hour. During the 2021 program year, we served 145 different families and completed 1,900 home visits. So we have an average of 160 visits a month. So our PDSA in this time is reading with that. We wanted to improve the relationship with father. That was our primary key driver, and our secondary driver was healthy father interactions within the child's family daily life. Why is to encourage fathers to read a book to the child. We started in late March. We don't have much data in March. It was a really busy and complicated month for us, so we couldn't start until actually start working on the PBS until April. So we're going to have just a little data on March. Our SMART aim is proportionate father reading more frequently to kids by providing a welcome package and regularly deliver handouts. An activity page focuses on the benefit of reading. We hope that 20% of fathers will report reading more frequently in the more recently visited week related to the very first week. So our measures, the weekly outcome will be the proportion of father reading to the child. Then the process measure will be the proportion of visits that the father receive a handout, and a handout will be a welcome package at the beginning when the very first visit, and then after that the handouts will be activity pages from the PAT curriculum or information about reading. Benefit of reading. Then another process measure is the proportion of families receiving a handout. And again, will be any kind of handout that are related to reading. A disruptor measure will be what's the proportion of father not reading for a specific reason. This is our change theory diagram. We want to increase the father involvement in parenting. We gave away a welcome letter and handouts to the fathers. The disruptor there, the father didn't receive the welcome package or didn't receive the handouts. Then the PE reminds, the parent educator reminds during the visit, provide the handout and reminds the family about the reading activity. A disruptor there will be that the PE doesn't mention anything about reading or provide handout. Father reads book to the child. So we have the disruptor will be the family doesn't have enough books at home, or the child is resistant to read. The father didn't have time to read because it's unavailable. And father doesn't have literacy skills to read the book. And at the end, improve relationship between the father and the child. So our plan will be, we will be implementing the change, the parent educators who will be targeting in the change, the qualifying families. Qualifying families will be those that had a father figure present at home. What is to increase the frequency of father reading to the children every week by 20%, where parent educators introduce the new PDSA and explain how it works, encourage fathers to read a book daily. The parent educator will follow up with the the parent or the PCG, would be the mother or the father if he's in the visit, and ask how many times father read to the children the previous week. When from March to June 2021. They do, so the welcome letter and handouts are provided to families during the first visit. This is a sample of our welcome letter, so where we explain what are we doing during this time. And then provide the handouts every visit. When I say handouts, we talk about handouts or activity pages. Parent educators talk during the visits about the importance of reading and encourage fathers to read daily to the children. The program plans to deliver 3 to 4 books during the drive-through in April for those parents that haven't, they don't have a book to read. And we knew that we have been usually on this program year, on every drive-through, we gave away 1 or 2 books. So we knew that families already have a couple of books or more than a couple of books at home that we have distributed before. Parent educator follow up with mom during the visit and ask how many times that read the previous week and document that on EPO. The observations, well, the comment letter was electronically shared with families. So all, even the handouts and the welcome letter was sent electronically since our visits are fully virtual now. Parent educators provide the monthly handouts and activity page, and the same is electronically. The incentives for father completing the activities were given out to families in the June drive through event. So we just have one last month, and we gave away some incentives that you're gonna see later. And those are the nesting box that we gave to every family that participated on the PDSA. So this is the family showing improvement on reading habits. So we were hoping to have that 20% of the fathers report reading more frequently. The percentage were way over the 20%, and you can see this was kind of like steady on between the on the 30s percentage. The outcome measure, the reading habits. So the same here, we keep a proportion of father figure ready more frequently, and it was kind of like on the between the 20 and 25%. Very steady between April and June. The outcome measure is the trends in reading habits. This graphic is a little bit complicated to understand, but it's really cool to see the orange bar, which is the increasing, the families that were increasing. This is week by week. And the colors, like the green is stating of 4, like reading 4 books a month. So really, really cool. See the colors of the ones that were steady and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. Process measures, the handouts receive around 75% of the families receive handouts on those months, including the welcome letter. Disruptor measure, reasons for no reading. So we have different listed, but as you can see, the reason for no reading were more than the father was unavailable or literacy skill, which is the blue, or lacking literacy skill. Study, well, the measures interpretation, the outcome, the proportion of father figures reading more frequently was over 20, actually was between 20 and 30. The process is 76% of the families received that welcome letter, 83% of the family received the parent as teacher activity handouts, 75% received books to read to the child. And we gave away books in April and in June when we did the bus drive-through. The disruptor, 20% of the family who didn't read expressed having literacy issues, and 30% who didn't read to the child were unavailable. And I need to tell something about this picture that one of the parent educators sent me. It's pretty cool because this father he read novels all the time. He's very passionate reading novels, and he read the novels to the kid. So he read aloud, so the child have that time with the child. So it's great. And those were the nesting boxes that we gave away, and the family sent us pictures, the child playing with those. So every family that participated during those 3 months, April, May, and June, and read to the children, received one of those. Fathers are willing, our lesson learned, fathers are willing to participate in the children activities. We learned that for this one and our past PDSA, that actually fathers like to be engaged in the activities. Mothers enjoy sharing reading information and resources with the father. Families are looking forward to receive an incentive. So as we notice, and we know that families are more kind of like eager to participate if there is an incentive at the end. In the last PDSA, we give away gift cards like Marisol, and it was amazing. Like almost every family participated, and it's great. It's kind of like bittersweet because you say, well, you need an incentive for them to participate, but it's cool for them to have it, and actually also motivate the parent educators to, to help the family to get that incentive. Families enjoy getting free foods, free books to read to their children. Parent educators enjoy having new activities and incentives with families to promote their home visits. We think that PEs may include more reading activities during home visits. PEs may encourage fathers to spend quality time with their kids and reading at least once a week. We hope that was a kind of like a learning process, so the parents can keep that routine. Program may plan reading a challenge or other literacy activities to improve number of books reading a week. That's something that we are thinking about. Program may provide books to families to promote reading activity. And that's something that we usually do in our drive-thrus or in our group connections when we are in person. And that's all. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Questions, thoughts, comments for Cap Tulsa?
This is David. I've been listening to all three presentations this morning, and kudos to all of you. I'm excited to hear the next few as well, but just briefly want to say that I think the evidence is sufficient to conclude that this is possible to make a difference in these families' lives with dad being involved, particularly in reading. And I'm really excited about the results that you've all demonstrated and sharing that with others who are close on our heels wanting to do the same thing. I'm also really thrilled to hear that this is going to continue in your programs, even if it's not going to be the focus of the next PDSA. But if it requires an incentive, so be it, right? And what a small cost to pay, and the reward is much, much greater. So again, I'm just thrilled to hear these results and to see the fruits of your hard labor. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree. And I should mention that yesterday, actually, I participated. The national network of MIECHV asked to interview us about father engagement because we are one of the first states to ever tackle this issue and do a CQI on father engagement. And so they really were viewing us as kind of trailblazers and wanted to hear about how it's going. And I was able to really sing everyone's praises and talk about all the fantastic work that you're doing. And people were super excited. So once that does get released, hopefully we can send it out and you can hear about it. But really, it was fantastic to be able to speak to all the work that everyone is doing and how hard they've worked to get fathers involved, particularly during a pandemic, and to see such great results. So thank you for that. What we will do now, let's take a break. We're getting close to our break time. So we will take, let's do a 20-minute break. So we'll come back at 10:30 and we'll start up again. So we have Frontline and Creotes still to present. But let's take a 20-minute break. Feel free to stretch, move around, and we'll get back at 10:30 to start the next round of presentations. So thank you so much. Great work, everyone. Again after the break. So hopefully everyone is back in front of their screens. The next group to present is Frontline. Deidre, are you on? Are you able to share screen or do you need help?
I'm on and I'm going to try to share here.
All right, fabulous.
Just a minute. Okay. Everybody can see that, I guess.
Yep, looks great.
Okay. Of course, our name of our program is, our agency is Frontline Family Solutions. We serve the Garvin County, McLean County, Cleveland County, and Comanche County. We've been serving those areas for over 46 years now. Our CQI experience is a total of 7 years. Of course, we've only had 5 years with the state and 2 years with the MIECHV program. Our home visitor model program is the Parents as Teachers. And we had 55 fathers that participated in our CQI project. Our key driver was to increase the participation with the fathers. I'm just going to say fathers, and I'll also mean the father figures as well that is in the home. The reason why we picked that was because we wanted to see an increase in the fathers with the family routines. Our start date was supposed to be February the 15th. We actually started on March the 30th due to our surveys not being ready for the fathers to complete. So we had a little lapse in time with that. But our end date was June the 30th, 2021. Our SMART aim, we were wanting to increase the number of engagement routines frequency from the existing and the new fathers between their pre and their post surveys by 10%. This is our SMART aim graph 1. We did see an increase for the existing families. That increase was 15.4%. And then for the new families, we saw an increase of 67.6%. So we definitely exceeded that 10%. This is our SMART aim graph 2. And this one is it's divided into the different routine categories. So as you can see, all of those, out of the 4 categories, the new fathers exceeded the 10% in every category. And then of the existing fathers, we actually had a decrease in the bedtime routine. Our plan was who was going to be implementing our CQI project: supervisor, the parent educators, and then of course our office coordinator. We targeted all the fathers that was in the home, and like I said before, the biological father as well as father figures in the home. What the parent educators did, they provided the fact sheets and the handouts on routines. And then they did have the fathers to complete the pre and post surveys. We did these either virtually, face-to-face, or over the phone. I've already talked about that. The only thing that changed in the beginning of our CQI project, we were doing the surveys at each visit, and feedback from the fathers, they were saying that was too much. So we did change that to only doing 2 surveys, a pre and a post one. So it was only given to the fathers twice during this cycle. The other big change was that our father figures, if they wasn't home during the visit, the mothers had the option to complete the survey for them. Okay, and this is the survey that we had the fathers to complete. We had it in English and in Spanish. And this is our fact sheet, and we had it as well as English and Spanish. And this is some of the handouts that we were given to the fathers, and it's through the PAT curriculum. This is our outcome measure graph. We had 42 existing family visits that completed the surveys, and then we had 13, of the new families that completed that survey. So this graph is talking about that. Our process measure, since we had to start late, some of our materials during the month of April, it was either, the data wasn't either put in, it was lost, or our parent educators or the families didn't complete the surveys. We also experienced a lot of staff changes during that month. So we think that that was some of the reason for this chart fluctuating graph. We did have some of the staff receive some of the old families. So we think that had a lot to do with this fluctuating graph here. Our disruptors, they were the father figure no longer in the home. The father figure has left for the military. Father figure went from working part-time to full-time. Mother's prenatal. Family leaves the PAT program. For the months of like April through June, we experienced 2 identified disruptors. And then we also encountered 2 unexpected disruptors. And this change theory diagram, the blue right here is our ones that we experienced. We had a father that went to full-time working from part-time to full-time because he moved out of town to get a job. So that was one of the disruptors. And then the other disruptor was we had a father that was incarcerated. So he wasn't able to keep his routines. In the red, this disruptor is one of them that we wasn't expecting. When the schools was no longer in session, then one of the father's routine was to pick up his child from school. So that was no longer available for him. And then the other one, disruptors, from speaking with the parent educators, some of the fathers' feedback was if the baby was newborn, they didn't do as many of the routines that we had selected on the surveys with that age group. So, lesson learned. Our overall conclusion: we did exceed our expectations in the areas of the self-care and other routines for the new fathers. The frequency of engagement of routines for new and existing fathers in all of those areas was over 15%. So that was exciting. One of our graphs showed that it was a decrease with the bedtime routines for existing fathers. So, and we don't know why that was so, but it was a decrease in that area. If we had to, what we would do differently in the beginning of the CQI project, we would only have the fathers complete 2 surveys, the pre and the post, instead of, like I said earlier, doing a survey at every visit. A success story, we had a single father who was in the process of reunification through DHS with his 4 sons. Through increasing his knowledge of parenting and child development and providing him the handouts and the fact sheets and working with this father on how important the routines are. He went from 1 time a week doing routines with his children to 7 times a week. And that father is currently thriving and building a strong and an impactful relationship with his family. Our act, what we think we will be doing, what we're going to do, we're going to adopt the CQI project. We're going to continue to use the fact sheets and the handouts to inform the fathers on the importance of daily routines with their children. And these handouts will be presented to the fathers or father figure that enrolled in the PAT program as a welcome father packet. And that is it.
Thank you so much. Any questions, thoughts, comments for Deidre's group?
Yes, just want to say that was great. Awesome. That father that increased 7 times and got his children back. But I do have a question. So if DHS was involved, how is it that he was receiving services from PAT?
DHS, it was a unsupervised visitation 1 time a week. And so that's how we provided services. They would go to the home 1 time a week and we would be in the home with them then doing that. It was a reunification case.
Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? All right, I also have to say, Deidre, I love the graphics and the imaging that you use. They were super cute.
Thank you.
Because those don't look like traditional PowerPoint. So whoever you had, whether you did that or somebody else from your program, it's absolutely fantastic and super cute for the father engagement topic.
Thank you. And all the credit goes to Crystal, our office coordinator.
Well, very nice work, Crystal. That looked great. All right, thank you so much. We're going to finish up our presentations with Creox. So Krista, are you going to be presenting?
Yes, ma'am. I will be presenting for us this morning. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Just a second, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Okay. So can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah, looks good. We can hear you.
So I'm pleased to be presenting on the outcomes of fatherhood engagement at Creox. And this cycle we promoted healthy interactions between child and father figure by increasing reading time. So we are located in 8 counties, and we've been in Muskogee for a year now. We use the PAT home visitation model. MIECHV site is Muskogee, and then all of our other sites are non-MIECHV. We have a total of 43 families identified to have involved father figures who actively reach their child, and overall, we have 106 families who were given age-appropriate books and 10 families reported to not have books. Okay, so for our father engagement strategy, we decided to introduce fact sheets and distribute age-appropriate books to families at home visits. Why did we do this? To increase the frequency of how many times per week our fathers are spending with their children. PEs would talk to the families and we would track the outcome on ETO to collect the data. We started this in February of 2021, and our SMART aim was for after dispersing the fact sheet and books, we will increase the number of fathers reading frequency by 10% by July 2021. So for our outcome measure, we looked at the average times of each father figure reading to the child per week. The numerator was the number of father figures reading to the child per week, and the denominator was the number of father figures involved in the home. The process measure was looked at as the count of family that has the age-appropriate books to read, the type and count of books the program provided, and then also the count of the material reviewed or distributed. Then our disruptor measures were the factors that prohibit the father figure to read to the children. So here is our change theory diagram. So our change idea was to encourage the father to read to the child, and our process measures were PE's model reading in a home visit, PE educating on benefits of quality time spent with child, and to share fact sheet and book share at the visits. Then our primary driver was for healthy father interactions and to increase story time. Our disruptor measures were considered to be father unavailability due to schedules and location, which was our most common one again. And then we also considered staff turnover or leave. We had one staff on maternity leave that contributed to that. And then also families were transferred each time that there was a staff change. Then lack of books in the home was another disruptor. We also had a family with literacy barriers, which contributed to the data. And then child behavior and or disability. If a child were to resist the engagement time with dad, or if there are any mental health issues that became a challenge for that engagement time. Okay, so our plan was for staff to implement the change. Mothers delivered items to father and father figures when unavailable. Parent educators offered online books when father figures were in another location. So if they were away at work, then that would be a time that a parent educator would suggest an online source, or anytime that they were away from their child. Fathers, father figures, and male caregivers were targeted. We had the fact sheets and books distributed to families at home visits, and the welcome letters, fact sheets, and books with new enrollments. And then this process, like I said, began February 15th, 2021. So what we did was the program manager and supervisor teamed up to create the fact sheet for dads. The fact sheet highlighted benefits of attachment and early literacy. Parent educators provided the fact sheet to families, which included information on fatherhood engagement. The welcome letter from the previous cycle was also distributed to new families at enrollment. Our bilingual PE translated the fact sheet into Spanish for our Spanish-speaking clients. The welcome letter was provided in both languages as well from our previous cycle. We distributed the fact sheet and books and tracked on ETO the frequency of times read to the child by the father figure, provided activities for the father figure and child, and previous materials given. So here's our fact sheet in English. And then this is our fact sheet in Spanish. And so for our study, this graph here is showing the proportion of the father figure's activity with reading to their child. The number of father figures reading to their child is the numerator. The number of father figures involved in the home is the denominator. Our SMART aim is after dispersing the fact sheet and books, we will increase the number of fathers reading frequency by 10% by July 2021. The SMART aim was met as we have exceeded the 10% increase of father-child interaction and reading time, showing a 108.3% increase. And this is our graph for a process measure of the count of families with books. So this graph shows the count of books distributed per week. There was a consistent distribution in materials distributed across the span of the cycle. And then these graphs here show detail of materials distributed, including printed book resources and father-related materials reviewed or distributed, as well as a graph showing the proportion of reading time increase as father figures' time with kids increased. The results were varied due to staff learning processes for inputting data, as well as staff turnover and leave, leading to a disruption in service for some families. We also had several families age out and graduate from the program. And then also these factors just led to a skew in the data. Okay, and this is our disruptor graph. So this graph is showing our main disruptors and factors that prohibit father figures to reach children. This data is indicating that father figures were unavailable as our most common disruptor. PEs report that father figures who wanted to read but couldn't. This was due to the fact that father figures' work schedule and location. Some fathers did not understand the importance of reading to their child, or in a custody situation, a child would be visiting father figure and they wouldn't have that communication to mom, so mom wasn't able to report it to the PE. Father figures, yeah, and so mom was unable to report to PE to take place during a visit. So then that never got reported in the data. Yaki, did you have anything else to add about these graphs?
I don't. I think it's enough.
All right. So our measures interpretation on outcome by average, the reading time per father figure increased by 21% since February. After distributing materials, the number of fathers reading frequency increased by 10%. Process, the count of age-appropriate books in father materials has been gradually increased during the past 6 months. The proportion of father figures who read to their child increased by 20%. And disruptor, our main disruptor, was consistent with our last cycle on the fatherhood engagement, with the reason being father figure unavailability due to work schedule and/or location. For lessons learned, measure results. Data was collected starting in February due to the creation of the fact sheet and father figures and distribution of books and materials by PEs. And then getting the ETO forms ready for PE to use. The welcome packet was used from the last cycle with our newly enrolled fathers. Families were receptive to the fact sheet and other materials. We noticed over time that the main disruptor was the father figure's work schedule, as well as the staff turnover and new staff learning protocol. Overall, the results did match our SMART aim. We met our goal of increasing father figure reading frequency by 10% by the end of June. We learned that father figure availability may be out of our control due to schedules. However, we can encourage father figures to read to their child regardless of their location. PEs encouraged this with online book shares. However, father figures' participation did not waver. If starting over, we would choose to focus on reasons for the disruptors throughout the study and help father figures find even more solutions based on those causes. We would ensure new staff understand the study documentation requirements before a lapse of effects take place in the data outcomes. And for our ACT, we will adapt this practice and continue to issue out welcome letters and fact sheets to new families at enrollment. We will invite father figures to group connections, encourage and educate fathers on the benefits of reading to their child and the process of building attachment with their children. Obtain father figures' contact information and keep them involved in the program communications and distribute books as needed. We will share activities and father-related materials that would be appealing for the father figures to share with children. And that's all that I have. Did anybody have any questions about our study?
Thank you, Krista. Any comments, questions for her group? All right, thank you. So, Krista, I was just going to ask, in terms of the online books and reading apps and things like that that you use, was there a specific site that you utilized, or what did you use to support that online connection?
I think that, and maybe they can put in the chat what online sources they used. As a PE, previously, I did not use online. If I did, it was like it was a YouTube link for a book. But but there might have been an app or something that some of the other PEs could use. So maybe if they want to add that to the chat, they could share that information.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we are finishing up with our Father Engagement Learning Collaborative. Before we transition off, I just want to kind of highlight some of the innovations worth repeating that were mentioned today and some lessons learned. I think across all the presentations, one of the things that we've heard is that it does seem like these fact sheets, these welcome handouts really do help inform fathers about the importance of daily routines. So sometimes we've heard that fathers, they know that they should be engaging in these activities, but the handouts, the welcome letters, the fact sheets really help drive home why it's so important. And we got a lot of great feedback from fathers saying that they really did appreciate learning that information. Some of the programs also reported that the welcome letters, when they're mailed directly to father figures, that was really well received, that fathers appreciate the personal touch, being directly invited and welcomed into the program, that it wasn't just extended from the mothers. So that was something that really seemed to resonate with the fathers. In one of the OKC presentations, we heard that after working with the PAT activities, some of the fathers reported that they really tried to establish their own learning activities and reading routines with their children. So they learned about creating a structure and a routine around reading and other types of father engagement activities, and that PAT helped support them in learning how to create more structure around their involvement. And that fathers were receptive to participating in group connections, especially when they were directly invited. In terms of lessons learned and room for improvement, I think Krista really illustrated this well, that father figure availability may be out of our control. There are times when fathers are going to be geographically separated from their families. There are going to be times when their work schedules are demanding and inflexible. But there are ways to get really creative around engaging fathers. And I think that Creox really highlighted that with saying there are ways that you can do technology and virtual visits and getting online books. And there are ways to try to get around some of these barriers and use the technology and tools that we have to try to get fathers engaged regardless of geographic location, work schedules, things like that. Some of the programs reported really high levels of father involvement. So we had a few, and this came up in the learning session last week with OKC, where mothers were essentially reporting a ceiling effect. The fathers, at least according to the mother's report, were pretty highly involved. So sometimes it makes getting that involvement to move and increase a little bit challenging if you're running into that ceiling effect. But that even if they were reporting high levels of involvement in child rearing, there was significantly less involvement, direct involvement in home visiting. So it seems like there's still a lot of space for trying to get fathers more involved in the home visits, particularly now that a lot of the programs are moving back into the homes. And then finally, offering more visits and group connections on the weekends, in the evenings, to try to circumvent, again, these barriers around fathers' work schedules, that if we want dads involved, we really need to think about how can we work with the schedules that they have to accommodate. So that was another thing that came up across the learning sessions. Obviously, these are being recorded. Our plan after the learning session is to distribute both the Oklahoma County and the Tulsa County learning sessions so that you can hear from each other and share from each other. And I know there's some comments going back and forth in the chat about ways that we will post and distribute the materials from today's session as well as last week's, so that you can look at other programs, see what everyone else is doing. And also if you want to refer back to other programs or potentially see some of the activities or welcome letters, things that they posted, we will have those available to you. Any other thoughts, comments, reflections as we finish up our father engagement?
David again. I just want to repeat some of the things I said before, and I really don't think I can emphasize this enough, that what you did is nothing short of miraculous. And when we started this process, a year and a half ago, there were little seedlings of doubt, I'll be honest, even among our own group, about whether this was the right direction to go. And can we effectively get fathers engaged in home visiting? We knew it was a tall order. We knew that from what we had read from folks before us who had attempted research studies and CQI processes like this in the past. We knew directly from some of your programs that this was going to be difficult, to say the least. But looking back on it, again, truly miraculous, given the fact that this all happened in the middle of a pandemic. And the findings are just unbelievable, particularly for reading. And I want you to know, I think it's been hinted at already, that we're looking for outlets to share the good news. So your PDSAs are being shared with other groups that are developing father engagement PDSAs right on our heels. Helen participated in the podcast yesterday to sing praises from all of our groups. And we have a manuscript that we're about to submit summarizing some of the, or highlighting some of the main findings out of the collective learning collaborative. So all of this is due to your hard work, your imagination, creativity, and your dedication to the families that you serve. And I just want you to know that we are thoroughly impressed with the quality of the work that you've done, and certainly with the effectiveness of these findings. So this is definitely not the end of father engagement and home visiting here in Oklahoma or elsewhere. I have a sneaky suspicion this is going to become a central topic of focus nationally, especially as good news of the work that you've done starts to get out to more and more programs. So again, congratulations. There was a question asked about the presentations, by the way, and I just wanted to mention that we are trying to migrate that over to our new website, and I posted the link in the chat. That's one way that we share the good news with a lot of the sites outside of Oklahoma. So we will update that if we're a little bit behind, in part because we stood up a new website recently. So you'll also be able to find not only your father engagement action period PDSAs, but we've gone all the way back to the family engagement PDSAs. Most of those I think are already up there, and we're just trying to catch up on the father engagement learning collaborative resources that you've provided us.
And it looks like in the chat, a lot of the PEs from Creoaks are entering some information about their online reading resources. So for those who are interested, it looks like they have some information about YouTube read alouds and other programs that they use. So for what that's worth and how you want to incorporate that moving forward, they have some really great suggestions for what to use. We are going to take a break now. We are a little bit ahead of schedule. So what we're going to do, let me just check the agenda for timing. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll break for lunch now, since we're going to be moving into a new direction, talking about developmental monitoring and promotion after lunch. And we can extend lunch just a little bit. So we'll meet back here. It's 11:05 now. So we'll meet back here. Let's do 12:10. So if everyone can come back around 12:10, we will resume after lunch. And like I mentioned, we're going to move into developmental monitoring and promotion. I'll review the key drivers diagram, talk through some data and core measures that we're going to collect at the collaborative level, and then we'll do our breakout session so you can start planning. So more to come on that, but if everyone could rejoin at 12:10, that would be great. And we will keep this up, so if people have questions during the lunch hour or need help with anything, just feel free to reach out to me or Lisa. And we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much. So hopefully all of you are back. Let me show the presentation. Okay. Lisa, does that look okay still? Okay. Just making sure it didn't get messed up during the lunch break. Okay, so we are going to end our learning collaborative on father engagement and move into developmental monitoring and promotion. There we go. And I probably don't have to convince anyone on this call about the importance of child development and why we want to monitor it and promote it. But just to give a little bit of background about where child development in Oklahoma stands. Right now, the most recent numbers show that Oklahoma is ranked 47th for public education in the nation, 50th for adverse childhood experiences, and 41st for fiscal efforts to support intellectual and developmental disabilities. These rankings are even more striking given that approximately 13% of 9 to 24-month-olds have been identified as having a developmental concern that qualified them for early intervention service. So many of the children that we know of and work with experience developmental and or behavioral delays from a very early age, and these delays can lead to developmental and behavioral difficulties that have profound effects on their lives and on their families. Our goal with the CQI collaborative focused on developmental monitoring and promotion is to build on past MIECHV efforts on child development. Obviously, this has been an area of focus for some time, but we really want to enhance and build on what we're doing. And it aligns with MIECHV benchmarks. We already track developmental screening, behavioral concerns, early language and literacy skills, and parent-child interactions. And our goal is to provide insights on how to improve screening of developmental and behavioral challenges, to develop workforce, and to get parents more involved in their child's development. For those of you who are on the monthly call last month, you heard us talk about the Centers for Disease Control's Learn the Signs Act Early program, but I wanted to highlight a few different sets of materials that might be relevant for your PDSAs. So we do have the Learn the Signs Act Early program that has materials that are developed specifically for home visitors and other early childhood providers. It uses books, growth charts, parenting apps, milestones, booklets, tip sheets, checklists to really track what's going on with the child and how are we promoting the child's development. There is also There's also the Talking is Teaching program, which promotes early language acquisition. So for those of your programs that are interested in focusing specifically on language, there's the Talking is Teaching program. It helps parents use daily activities and routines to sing or talk with their child. It tries to improve vocabulary and brain development in children. And it also uses books, and it has parent videos, text messaging, and social media to promote early language literacy. Really, the goal of what we're doing today is to figure out where are we, what is working, what do we feel good about, and where do we need to be? Do we want to focus on improving screening of these behavioral and developmental challenges? Do we want to work on educating the workforce or involving parents more? Hopefully most of you have seen this, if not all of you, but this is our key drivers diagram for the MIECHV CQI focused on child development. Our overall aim across the entire learning collaborative is to increase developmental monitoring and promotion. But the way in which we're going to focus on that can take different forms. So we have 3 different primary drivers that we've identified for this round. One is to improve the developmental and behavioral screening. We have secondary drivers related to this focused on creating a standardized and reliable process for developmental screening, and also informing families about children's screening results. So it may be that your program has a standard and reliable process for screening. You screen every child that comes in, but maybe you really want to focus on how do you talk to parents about their children's results, especially families that might be resistant to the feedback they're getting. If you've identified a concern, how do you get families to understand those concerns and act upon those concerns? The second primary driver is to increase workforce training on child development. So again, this is focused on the providers themselves. So training the providers on topics related to child development, or providing ongoing supervision of providers on child development. And as you can see, for all of these primary and secondary drivers, we have change idea examples, different smaller pieces that we think that you can take on as your PDSA, depending on what your goal is for your program. And then our last primary driver is to increase family involvement in child development. So this is really focusing on what are you doing with the families? What are the families doing to either monitor their child's development or to promote their child's development. So you can see that we have some different areas of focus related to referrals to community service. So trying to help parents with referrals, getting into community agencies that would help with some of the identified challenges that their children might be facing, maybe implementing a system to follow up and track referrals. If you feel like your program's implementing the referrals, putting them out there, but families maybe aren't following up on them, or that you're really trying to close that gap between referral and action on the part of the parents. Or you want to highlight the importance of the role of the parents. So using some of the materials that we mentioned, or even some new materials or ones you create yourself, to teach parents about developmental milestones, to teach them about their child's social emotional development, or to help parents promote development in their children by using age-appropriate activities, games, interactions. So those are just some of the ways that we think that you could focus on developmental monitoring and promotion and take a few different pathways towards that goal. Okay. As a learning collaborative, we have a couple different SMART aims, and we've been talking about this internally to try to figure out exactly what we want to track. And we realized that given the focus on both monitoring and promotion, it would be helpful to have two different aims. So for this learning collaborative, we'll have a SMART aim focused on monitoring and one focused on promotion. For monitoring, we've kind of had some discussion going back and forth about whether we focus on, are we screening children, or once they are screened, if there's an issue, what do we do? I think we will likely fall into the latter camp and focus on what we do once a child has an identified development or behavioral concern, given that most of the programs you are reliably screening already. But what can we do once we've identified an issue in terms of making sure that child receives additional services if it's warranted? Then for promotion, we're going to focus on improving parents' promotion of development. So making sure that parents are engaging in activities and routines that will support what is healthy for their children and what will lead to better outcomes. To measure developmental promotion, we've come up with a new core measure. So I know in the last learning collaborative, we had a core measure for father engagement where we asked how often fathers were engaging in certain behaviors. Now we're going to ask more broadly about what's going on in the home, whether mom is doing certain things or whether dad is, or what's happening more broadly in the home. These different items were created by our research team, but they're based on the Learn the Signs Act early promotional material. So our goal is to have you ask mothers once every 3 months. So we're changing the time period to space it out a little bit more. And every 3 months, ask how often mothers or fathers, we'll make sure that that's clear, are engaging in certain behaviors. So reading or telling stories to the child, singing or dancing, setting routines, showing affection, playing age-appropriate games with the child, providing age-appropriate toys, pointing out new things and naming them, praising or encouraging wanted behaviors, describing children's emotions, encouraging the child to drink from his or her cup or use a spoon, encouraging a child to do simple chores at the home, doing art projects, taking the child to the park, setting rules and limits, and arranging play dates or play groups. And all of these are going to be asked on the scale of, do you never do these things? Do you do them one day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and every day? And actually, I realize this hasn't been updated since the last learning session. We decided for the 4+ days, it was easier if we just said 4 to 6, just so it's clear that that is not the same as every day. We've been asking these questions of some of your families already. So as part of our external evaluation, we've been administering this questionnaire, and we have some preliminary results showing how parents are responding. This is the total score. So if you go back and take all these 15 items, and if we rank them from never being 0, every day being 6, we can add up how often they're reporting each of these behaviors and get a total score. So here's what we're seeing across the families that we've talked to so far. Most of the families you can see where this peak is, it's pretty high in terms of parents reporting that they're engaging in these behaviors pretty frequently. But what we see when we look at the item level is that there is room for improvement on certain items. So what we can see here in this kind of pinkish salmon color, this is every day. So parents indicating that they do these behaviors.
Hey, how you doing? How are you doing? Doing pretty good.
Hi, can you mute yourself?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know it's hard. Sometimes it goes off mute. So the pink color is, or the salmon color, I guess, is every single day they're engaging in these behaviors. One thing we see is that parents report essentially across the board that they are showing affection to their children every day. This means there's not going to be a lot of variability in this item, so we will likely remove it and not ask parents for the learning collaborative, given that it's not expected to change over time. But you can see with some of these other items, like encouraging simple chores, almost 50% of parents are reporting that they never do this with their child. Similarly, we have pretty high rates of nevers and rarely, once a day, 1 day, 2 days for arts and crafts, relatively low rates for going to the park. So we do have some items where we're seeing that there isn't a lot of involvement on a daily basis by the parents in these activities and promotional activities. So we feel like there is room for improvement, especially in certain areas. And so it might be worth kind of exploring as you think about your PDSA, which routines, which activities, if you want to focus on that, which ones do you choose? So like I said, we are asking that across the Learning Collaborative. This is asked of parents every 3 months. And what we'll do is we've already put it into there's a new touch point that will be going live on ETO. That is the child development touch point. These items will be in there and there will be ETO alerts, just like you had for the father engagement. You'll receive alerts every time this is due for one of your families. In terms of other data monitoring that you might want to do and thinking through what you might track, we already have some pieces that are embedded into ETO. So obviously referrals are already tracked in ETO. In ETO, we also track developmental screening. So was the ASQ administered, ASQSE, for example. There are items tracking referral follow-up and whether providers completed certain trainings. We also have the Learn the Signs Act early measure that we created. So we have the Learning Collaborative measure that I just showed. And I'm going to show you another one that we have based on Learn the Signs Act early, which is focused more on monitoring. So do parents understand when their children should reach certain milestones? There are a couple other measures that I just want to highlight in case they're of interest to your teams. So we have the STEMQ, which I'll walk through a little bit. That's focused on the promotion of language development. And then we have a positive parenting practices measure and handout that's been created by our eval team as well. So I'm going to walk through some of those to see, if you're interested in these measures and if you have any questions. So in addition to the promotion measure that I showed that we're going to ask at the collaborative level, we do have a monitoring measure. I've only shown 12 of the items here. There are 32 total questions. That does not mean you need to administer the entire questionnaire. If you're interested in this, you could pick certain items that you're interested in. The way this measure works is it asks parents, at which age would it be a concern if your child is not doing certain behaviors? So if they can't jump in place, if they can't make if they're not making eye contact, if they are resisting dressing, sleeping, or using the toilet, at what age is that a problem? And so this is helping us identify, do parents know when certain milestones should happen? And do they know when to monitor for a potential concern? Do they know when it's problematic if a child hasn't engaged in a certain behavior? The STEMQ is focused on the availability of learning materials and ways in which you're promoting children's language and cognitive development. Again, this is a longer measure, but if you're interested in using it, you could just use certain items or questions that you feel are particularly relevant to your family. So it asks about providing certain things around some symbolic play, art, physical play, things like that. And so we can provide that for those of you who are interested in using it. We also have the positive parenting practices. So this is a handout that has been created by our team, and we also have a measure that tracks these same items. Basically, previous studies that David Bard and his team have done have shown that there are some positive parenting practices that lead to better outcomes, particularly in the face of adversity. So children who are experiencing adversity and challenges in the home, if they have these protective positive parenting practices, it helps offset some of the negative consequences we see due to adversity. So there are 6 different types of parenting practices identified here. One is family meals together, so eating together, reading as a family, going out, limiting technology, singing, and playing with peers. For each of those, there are additional recommendations for how to do these positive parenting practices. So for programs that are interested in promoting positive behaviors with the parents, you could use this handout. We're happy to provide it to you if you want to give this to your families as a way to encourage positive parenting practices. And like I said, we also have a shortened measure that asks some of these questions to see our parents doing these behaviors. Just gonna check there. Looks like Susan and Connie are very enthusiastic about this handout. So we will definitely make it available for those of you who would like to use it for sure. All right. As you put together your PDSAs, we also want you to think about potential disruptors. We have named a few here just to start you thinking about it, but it might be that parents don't use the provided materials, providers don't distribute the Learn the Signs Act early materials, providers don't believe their child has an area, parents don't believe their child has an area of concern, they report being too busy to follow up on a referral, providers don't record referrals, so it's hard to track whether they've been made or not. Providers forget to follow up with past referrals. Oftentimes referrals are also lost or delayed at follow-up at the doctor's office or provider. Parents don't complete a promotional activity, parents cancel home visits, or there may be cultural barriers around what is expected of a child and what parents are expected to do to promote development. We're going to have you break out into your teams in a few minutes, and what I want you to think about as you're selecting your change ideas is to work as a team to determine which change idea you would like to test. So first, identifying that primary driver. Do you want to focus on screening? Do you want to focus on workforce development? Do you want to focus on the parents and their promotional activities? And then narrowing in on from that, what secondary driver are you interested in? What change idea? You do not have to select one of the change ideas. It's listed on the key driver diagram. Those change ideas are examples, but there might be other ways that you think about addressing those primary and secondary drivers. So we want to give you some flexibility to adapt what's going to be helpful for you. So like I said, you can use the change package that we provided, you can come up with your own, and we'd like you to start to put together your PDSA template and your change theory diagram so that you can articulate your improvement theory. What is it that you're trying to do and how are you going to do it? And we'd like to encourage you to make sure that it's a good fit for your program. So if you feel like your program has really already addressed screening and you are screening all the kids that come in, your referrals are really solid, that might not be the area that you focus on. And make sure that you also think about, can this be tested in a short period of time? Again, we focus on a 5 to 6 month period for these cycles. So just thinking through, is this something that can be implemented in that 5 to 6 month period and see change over time? Your analysts will be in the breakout rooms with you. They'll be floating back and forth between their various programs. They can help you to identify the data that you would use to collect your measures. Dr. Bard and I will also be floating around to the various rooms. And I believe that Dr. Bonnie McBride and Seth Kastner, who gave their presentation last month on Learn the Signs Act early, they should be available to float around to the rooms as well. So you should have a lot of support if you have questions about the materials that you might use, as well as questions about what data you might use to measure your PDSA outcomes, process measures, and disruptors. You should all have the PDSA template. You can use the one from Father Engagement and just edit it, or if you need a new one or would like a blank one, feel free to reach out to Lisa. She can send you one. Like I said, yeah, coaching will be available. In terms of the analysts assigned, we have done some shifting of who is assigned to what programs. Lisa Deshay is a new member of our analyst team. She was part of OUHSC for a while, but she has just shifted onto our team. She is going to be helping primarily with the C1 programs. However, as you all are pretty aware, C1 programs haven't participated up recently because of their involvement in COVID-related activities. That is going to be changing. So the C1 programs have contacted us. They will be re-engaging in the Learning Collaborative starting in September, but they will likely start a new project in PDSA in January since they're going to be coming in the middle of a cycle. But Lisa will be helping out with them. She'll also be providing support to other programs as needed. Mallory Ford will be covering her same programs as well as PCCT, PAT, Tulsa. So Amy Treat, who has been helping with some of these programs, she is transitioned onto another project that she's going to be helping to lead. And so her CQI involvement is decreasing, which is why Mallory's taking on more responsibility there. Same thing with Andrew. He was helping with on the data side with Cap Tulsa and with Amy, but now he will be the primary analyst for that program as well. And then Adden and Yachi have their same programs from previously. Okay, so just a few more thoughts before we start these breakout rooms. When thinking about what you can do in 6 months, we know it goes by quickly. Thinking about how you're measuring your outcomes, how you're measuring your process. So thinking about, is it numerous? So the more counts you have of something, the easier it is to see these changes and know these changes are real. So thinking about, maybe I track the number of visits this behavior occurs versus the number of clients, because likely you'll have considerably more visits than you will clients. We want to keep the burden low. So thinking about how fast and effortless, hopefully it will be to collect these data. A lot of the information that I presented previously is already collected in ETO, but also if you're trying to think of additional questions you may want to have your PEs collect, trying to keep it brief. So maybe tracking visits canceled or completed versus a 20-minute questionnaire. Or if you're thinking about family engagement and promotion, maybe you do the 6 items for positive parenting behavior, or you use the learning collaborative outcomes that are already going to be tracked anyway, so that you're not adding additional work. And then thinking about keeping it fresh and a quick latency. So when you think about what's going on currently in your program, canceled visits, for example, would reflect what's currently happening. So this month, how many canceled visits did you have? That's different than 3-month retention, because if you're looking at over time patterns, that might not reflect what's currently happening and what's being impacted by the behaviors of the learning collaborative right now. And then frequent, of course, multiple measurements spread out gives us a lot more to track and is more likely to help ensure that there are changes over time versus one long measure that happens once. Remembering for SMART aim, we want to make sure it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. I think you've all gotten pretty impressive with your SMART aims at this point, but just thinking really concretely about, you want to change parent-child interaction, for example. What is it that you want to change? What behavior do you want to see? What % increase? Do you have a measurable outcome that you're interested in having? You want to see a 20% increase, or you want to see a certain percentage of parents participating. So how do you measure it? What's the time frame? Making sure that you think through from beginning to end of this cycle, how long is it going to take, and when will you know if those changes have made a difference? And being realistic about what can you achieve in this time frame, and trying to take on smaller projects relative to getting too big, which is going to be hard to contain over such a short period of time. We'll have you put together the change theory diagrams. These are really great for just making sure that you're thinking through the flow and the logic of your project, as well as it helps us highlight for other people what it is you're doing. So it's just kind of a nice visual and refresher of what you're trying to do. So to the extent that you can get these put together in the next hour and a half, that'd be great. Otherwise, you can finish them up, and we'll work on getting those developed over the next month. And lastly, just thinking through what is your process, what's your outcome, and what's your disruptor. Sometimes I know that it can be confusing, the difference between the outcome and the process, and I know that sometimes we get those flipped in our minds. For the process, we really want to think of what is it that you're doing or you want the parents to do that's going to create the change. So the outcome is the thing that you want to change. You want to get more kids assessed. You want to get the parents more involved. That's the outcome. The process is what is it you're doing? Are you handing out materials to them? Are you engaging in certain trainings with your workforce? Those are the different process measures. And then disruptor, what might impact the success of this PDSA? So I am going to stop there. And what we're going to do now is get assigned to breakout rooms. The way we're going to do it, this is similar to the last learning session. The rooms will open up and you can assign yourself to a given room. So just assign yourself to your program. For some people who have older versions of Zoom, that's not actually a feature that's offered. In that case, Lisa will be available in the main room to assign you if you need it. So if when the breakout rooms open up, you don't see an option to assign yourself, it may be that your Zoom is just a little bit more out of date and Lisa will take care of that for you. We are going to spend an hour and a half in those breakout rooms, so you have plenty of time to plan. If you get to a point where you feel you're finished, you've gone through it, you've got your PDSA template, you've got your change theory diagram, and it's not quite that hour and a half mark, you are welcome to take a break, because we will take a break between the breakout rooms and our final sharing of those PDSAs. Any questions before we get started? And for those of you that don't have a specific program, I know we have some people from the state and from other departments who are visiting on this call. You're welcome to assign yourself where you choose or remain in the main breakout room. All right, so Lisa, when you're ready, you can go ahead and open up those breakout rooms and we'll get started.
Is everybody seeing the rooms?
I don't see them now.
Okay. Huh. Let me try this again. I guess I'm going to have to assign. I'm not sure what it's doing. I've opened them, but I don't know why it's not allowing.
Okay.
Let me see if I can change the settings really quick. It's all rooms. Okay. Oh, it changed the settings again. Okay, so now everyone should see them.
Okay, so yeah, at the bottom it should say join a breakout room. And there should be options for all of you to join. So you're welcome to start that, and then we'll help those who are stuck.
Just let me know if you don't have the option and I can move you to your breakout room.
I don't see my option.
Okay, let me see. And which program are you with?
Tulsa.
Okay, I'll put you in there.
I think most of our team is still in here, so would
Okay.
be Monson, Louisa, Sol, Debbie, and myself, Carolyn.
I'm here. I don't know where I'm supposed to go or how to go.
Okay, I'm putting
with
everybody.
Parent Child Center.
I can find mine, Rosa Dillingham.
I can't find mine either. Kristen Hollis, Safe Care Tulsa.
Sherry Castro, what program are you with? I don't see you in a room. And
I'm
Rose,
the Parent Child Center. No, PTA.
Rosa Dillingham with Safe Care.
okay. And Carlisle, I don't see. Oh, no, it's Debbie, sorry. I think, wait, who's this?
Yeah, my whole team left, but I'm still here. Tulsa. Yeah, thank you.
All right, I think that's everybody.
All right, thanks, Lisa.
All right. Sherry, were you able to get into the room?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, no, and you were at PAT, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can. I'm going to move you around to some different rooms, and I'm going to try again because it says I moved you there, but it doesn't look like you've joined yet. I don't know if there's a message you receive on your end that you have to like click and allow yourself to.
Marisol sent me a message, but that was it.
Okay, I'm going to try again. Let's see. Frontline, so maybe frontline, and then PAT.
It took me there and then took me back out.
Okay. Because
Is
it's
it because
yeah, it says you're in PCC PAT right now. That's what I'm seeing on my end.
okay? Well, I don't see anybody but you.
Oh no. Okay, let me try. I don't really, let me see it. I don't know why it's not It
I
says
pressed- I pressed the button that said join.
okay, so I'm gonna put you in a room that's not your room. And then you can join that room, and then I'm gonna wait a few seconds, then I'm gonna take you out of that room and put you into the right one. The reason why is because it's saying you're in PCC PAT right now, but you're here with me. So I'm gonna put you in the wrong room, just join, and then I'm gonna put you in the right room and then join again.
Okay.
Okay. Yay, it worked. Okay, let's see.
Hey, Lisa, it's David. I have
Hi, Dr.
another
Hart.
meeting. I'm gonna have a meeting at 1, so I'm gonna jump into a room for a little bit, and then I've got to go for about an hour, and then I'll be back.
Okay.
I noticed the C1 folks have their own room. Did they ask for that?
Yeah, through email, they asked, could I make them a room? They didn't know
Oh,
where to go. I said they could hop around if they wanted to, but I offered to make them a room. They were like, yeah, let's do that.
gotcha. All right. Well, I'll see you later this afternoon.
All right.
Grant that David's getting. Hi, Lisa.
Hopefully everyone is back. What we're going to do now is hear from the supervisors about what they are doing for their next round, focus on developmental monitoring and promotion. For this, really the goal is to talk through, you put together your PDSA template, you can walk through that diagram, that document. If you have the change theory diagram ready to go, you can also present that. So just giving an overview of what your SMART aim is, what you're trying to achieve, how you want to do that, and kind of talk through where you've gotten so far. And if you have questions or things that you're struggling with, you can pose that to the group as well. We're going to go in the same order as this morning. So we'll start with PCCT PAT. So Marisol, if you want to start us off, that would be great. I know you were just here. Did we lose you, Marisol, or not? She might be taking a break now. All right, we'll flip and come back to Marisol. How about Sarah from PCCT Safe Care?
Sure. Safe Care talks about looking at increasing positive parenting practices by providing some of the LTSAE and CDC materials. Our process measures are to utilize those materials to teach parents about milestone. Did family complete a developmental activity with the child? Have parents download the CDC's developmental milestones app if they can. If not, parent educators can provide the printed material and walk through those with parents. And then we also talked about developing referral packets for providers with resources to provide to the parents or the caregivers. Some of the disruptor measures that we talked about were maybe parents forgetting to do the activities, parents canceling their visit, misplacing the information, or unable to download the app, and then availability to safely implement activities in the home. We're still kind of working through all of the PDSA pieces. So some of the tasks and tools we'll need are all of those materials, referral packets with the resources. The staff will be implementing, so plan, staff will implement. The target are the parents and caregivers. The what is putting together developmental materials to provide to the caregivers and putting together those referral packets. These will be implemented during home visits, whether it's virtual or in person, and when is monthly. And then we'll do this by completing positive parenting questionnaire monthly, downloading the CDC milestones app and materials, and providing those materials to the caregivers. That's kind of the nutshell of kind of what we have figured out for Safe Care so far.
Okay, so I heard you mention a couple different materials. Are you focused mainly on the app and then the other materials would be supplemental, or do you do them all equally? What was the thought there?
Yeah, I think mainly on the app, on the CDC materials, that whether the family or the caregivers can download the app or we provide it to them.
Mm-hmm. And then you provide the other materials as supplemental to that.
Right.
Yeah. One note for you guys and for anybody else who's trying to incorporate the Learn to Design Act Early app, one thing that is highly recommended is to have your providers have the app on their phone. If they make up a child around the same age as most of the people that you're seeing, because I think when parents are able to actually kind of see you pull out your device, show them like, these are the sort of things that are on the app, these are the notifications that I get, that can help parents kind of understand the value of that, rather than just saying, oh, there's this app that exists, you should check it out. So just a quick note for that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Seth. I actually did the same thing at the last learning session. I put it on my phone and put all my kids in. And now I get all kinds of fun alerts. So definitely helpful to have that frame of reference. Are there any pieces or parts that you're still struggling with, Sarah, that you're kind of trying to work through?
I mean, there's probably several pieces we're kind of trying to still iron out. And I think mostly too on the SMART aim of like what percentage we want to look at. And then also incorporating that percentage into our predictions, kind of to see how things are going to go. So
okay.
I think those are in my mind, those are kind of the biggest pieces that kind of stick out to me.
All right, sounds good. Marisol, would you like to present for PCCT PAT about what you're thinking and what your plan is so far?
I think that Sarah did it already. It's very similar, isn't it funny? We did not work as a team, but it just picked the same one. But yeah, sure, I can do that. This one. Okay. So please ignore any typos. But what we are going to utilize is going to be, or a title is going to be like utilize the LTSAE materials to teach parents about upcoming developmental milestones. Or primary driver will be increasing family involvement in child development. We think that, even though the date is kind of empty, we feel that maybe we will have the information ready and all the stuff ready to go really on September, but we might start, Helen, you were saying that we might start in August, so we might get something done in August with our parents, but we really wanted to make sure that our survey and ETO will be ready for when we really start going. So we don't, all the data or all the information that we gets captured correctly. So why was this change selected? Is to provide parents tools to support the child development in general. And our SMART aim is increase parental knowledge of milestones on average 15% at the end of these PDS by using LTSAE materials. And mainly are going to be like our milestone, the milestone app or paper form. So the monthly outcome, we're going to score on the LTSAE milestone. I really need to find a shorter version for that. Listen and learn learn the science, right? Maybe I need to call her like that. We already selected the 10 items that we will utilize. So on our process measures, we're still, I think that mainly just like a safe care, we will be using the paper and the online app to keep track of the milestones, right? The knowledge of the increasing of the knowledge of milestones for parents. But we will provide like a welcome letter and all that I will share in a minute. Okay, so let's go back, the structure. We feel that we might have some drawbacks that will be, or disruptors like parents can read, perhaps, even though we're giving them paper, and some on the online version. So it could be an issue for us. Maybe some parents might not have enough, space to download the app, and some are maybe not really. Some of our parent or new families are very young people that they really focus on doing everything on their phone or online. The paper form might not help them. Or might be not so attractive, I guess, to them too. And some parents, another disruptor, we thought that it could be the parents feel that they don't need to know about milestones, right? That they know what their children are doing or what they should be doing. So they feel that they already have all necessary information, that the milestone knowledge is just not for them. Our prediction is that we will exceed the 15%. And so the task or tools that we will need is to, get a hold of, for sure, the paper materials for the learn the science and download the app, like Seth was suggesting, in our phones. I think that's a very good way to put it too. Get familiar with all that. But our plan is like, who will implement it? It will be all the parent educators that we have right now. All our families will be targeted to receive this information. And what we are doing is the PEs will provide a welcome letter and explain benefits of understanding milestones. Will be provided on paper and the app milestone tracker. We will do these in person or virtual, depending on how we keep working. And when, the idea is for the parent educators to provide a welcome letter. And the welcome letter has a function just to explain in general that we are going to be working in this project, right? And the benefits of it, learning about milestones. We will provide the information of the milestone on paper again, and information on how to download the app, perhaps showing them how to do it. And I feel that we might need to provide also other materials through the months, but basically we're going to be using the app or the paper form of this. And we think that maybe at some point we will have a revamp. There are stuff that we are missing in here, but for now, that's it. We didn't get to finish or diagram or change it.
That's all right. That's a great start. Thank you so much, Marisol. All right, how about from CAP Tulsa? No, I can't hear you yet.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we were thinking, Andrew sent me the handout that we're gonna use, but I haven't received it yet. But it's what we are planning is using the handout that you show in your PowerPoint that have different parenting practices. So it comes like with 6 different topics and then a bunch of activities under each one. So we're gonna use that handout. The plan is maybe get it laminated and give the family markers, like dry erase markers, and that they can put it on the fridge and they can mark the activities that they are doing between visits. So what we are trying to do, well, is increase our primary driver will be increased family involvement on child development. And secondary driver will be importance of the role of parents. Our why was this change selected? Change idea will be use the LTSAE materials to encourage parents to complete age-appropriate activities with children. Our SMART aim will be improving average LTS total score from first measurement to the second to the third one. So the idea and improving that 10% for each one of those. So what we're thinking is on ETO, we're going to have a question. We're going to pick three topics, and probably will be activity, mealtime activities, reading, and what was the other one? Singing.
Singing
So
and
family
singing.
meal, reading,
Or
and
singing
singing.
and telling a story.
Okay, so the idea, so we're going to have an ETO asking those questions, like if you did activities related to those 3 topics, and we're going to have a box where the parent educator is going to put the number of the activities that they did in the since our last visit. So we're going to have a final score. So so the weekly outcome measure will be proportion of families showing an improvement on their total number of parenting practice since the last visit. So the idea is that we are gonna, what we are trying to accomplish is to get, to improve at least 10% of each time that we measure. The process measure will be for family meals, reading and singing, parenting practices. We ask how many times since last visit have you engaged in any of these parenting practices? And we are going to track the number of the total number across the weeks. The disruptive measure will be what's your most common obstacle to completing any of those activities. So we came out with those 4: no time, forgot, child wasn't interested, or for a family conflict. Our prediction is that the families are gonna do those activities. The frequency of the families doing this activity will increase 10% visit by visit. What we are gonna use, well, we're gonna have the parenting practices handout that we need some help to get them because we don't have them. And we're gonna laminate it, and make copies and laminate it or buy them and laminate it to give away to the families. We are also gonna have, we are gonna distribute notepads and the dry erase marker, so the parents can put notes and have maybe that count for when the parent educator asks. We're going to use PAT handouts and activity page related to the activities, a welcome letter, and the questions that are going to be added in ETO. And I think this is all what we did. well, yeah, the who, the parent educators, who is going to participate, all the families will be able to participate, what the frequency of families doing parenting activities will increase 10% visit by visit. And I just got that.
All right, great. So you said, Andrew, were you sending her the positive parenting handout or do you still need it?
I've been trying to email her this PowerPoint for about 30 minutes now. And I think between her email and my email, it's one technical problem or another is popping up.
Let's let blame COVID, Andrew.
Yeah, there we go.
So you just need the handout, right, Ariane? I can send you, I have a PDF version of just that, and that might be easier to send since it's not such a big file. So I'll send that to you.
And Helen, can we use the handout and make copies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I can forward it if you need.
Oh, do you have it, Lisa?
Yeah, you sent it earlier to me.
Oh, that's right.
It's the positive parenting slide, right?
Yeah, the one with the 6 parenting behaviors. It's got the little pictures. Like
yeah.
Purple.
I'll send it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome to make copies and hand that out. And I love the idea of laminating it so that they can use a dry erase marker to indicate when they've done those and kind of keep track week by week. That's fantastic. Very creative. All right, thank you so much. We're going to hear from Frontline next. So, Deidre.
Wait a minute. Okay. I'm gonna share. I hope. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, our primary job would be to improve developmental and behavioral screenings. And why we selected this was because we want to help increase parents' knowledge in child development. Our SMART aim will be to increase parents' knowledge on developmental monitoring for the index child. And we only selected the index child here. We're just trying to limit it this right now by 10%. The outcome measure, primary caregiver to review and update milestones, checklists before the home visits. And then our weekly outcome would be the number of families reviewing and updating the index child's milestone checklist. And we will ask at each visit for them to do that. Our process measures will be the parent educators will give the PCG and the CDC milestone checklist. And also we will be handing out the instructions on using the app, the tracker, at the beginning. And then we were gonna show the Simply Parenting videos, developmental videos, as a supplemental. They're really short, and so we're going to show them before every visit as well. So we'll be using those. The disruptors, no access to data to use the CDC app or the PCG, maybe loose copies of the paper checklist. The PCG leaves the PAP program. Index child is prenatal. Our prediction is that the PCG will increase awareness of developmental milestones. And of course, again, that's the tools that we will be using. I kind of already discussed those in the plan. Then all of the supervisor, our parent educators, program support will be implementing this. And like I said before, we are targeting the index child and the family. Let's see. We have here August the 16th as our start date. Actually, we want to start August the 9th. So that's that. And then I have a copy of our change theory diagram. Everybody seeing that?
No, I think you have to stop sharing the original document and then
To
switch.
share. Okay.
There you go.
All right, and this is our change theory diagram. And the disruptors, like I said before, no access to the data. PCG leaves the PAT program. They lose the copy of the paper checklist, or the index child is prenatal. So, and that's what we're gonna try to work on this cycle.
Great, thank you. The Simply Parenting videos, can you tell me more about that? I don't think I know those.
Okay, I'm gonna have Stacy, one of our parent educators, to share with you all because she uses them quite often.
Stacy on a separate line, or
She's gonna get on. She's gonna actually try to find the video since it's so short.
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
And yeah.
Okay, so this is what it is. It's just a simple YouTube channel, and it has the videos are around like 2 minutes a piece. And so they on here they have developmental videos. So like this is a 2-minute video about your 5-month-old baby's development. And so I won't play the whole thing. I'll just.
5-month-olds are a true delight. They spend less time fussing and more time smiling and laughing. No more imitating. Now they are truly reacting to your playful attention. And your baby's unique personality will begin to emerge. He or she will try many sounds to get your attention. Cooing and squealing.
Hello, boo-boo.
And even some early babbling. You'll begin to get a feel for your baby's language as he or she learns to communicate. You'll also see how music can affect your baby's moods. A 5-month-old will reach for objects and use their hand like a rake to pick things up. Objects are often moved from one hand to the other and will inevitably end up in the mouth. Time to be extra careful about small objects. 5-month-olds will discover that their feet and toes are interesting and even tasty.
So that's just kind of a preview of what those videos are. And they have them all the way up through 2 years of age, from newborn to 2 years of age.
Thank you, Stacy. Those are fantastic. I didn't know they existed. All right, thank you, Deidre, for showing your PDSA template and change theory diagram. We just have one more group, which is Creox.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Just a second. Okay. All right, so I think I realized I used the old format on this. It's different than everybody else's somehow, so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so our primary driver, we went with increasing family involvement in child development. Our change theory, engage and educate parents in promoting developmental monitoring and milestones tracked by utilizing books and materials. We did put in the order for the LTSAE materials. So that's going to be our plan, although we don't have that yet. And so we kind of wanted to look through that before we determined that's for sure what we thought our parents could handle. And so we did talk about also the CDC app, the milestone app. So I kind of threw that in here as well. So Smart Aim, after delivering the LTSAE materials, we will increase the frequency of parents tracking milestones by 10% by 1/15, 2022, which seems crazy to say. And then process measures, frequency measuring of parents tracking milestones. So 1, we would deliver the LTSAE materials. 2, count number of materials distributed. 3, distribute educational handouts emphasizing the importance of parental involvement in child development. And 4, encourage parents to complete age-appropriate activities with child by offering incentives. Disruptors, parents not seeing the value in tracking, parent and child developmental delays. We talked about it both. If the child has delays, they might already be with another program kind of dealing with some of those delays. And so those families may not feel it's as important, or even on the parent side, the parents being low functioning and being unable to maybe do the TLSAE materials. And then so literacy issues, we went ahead and put in their culture too, just because we have a lot of young parents, or not a lot of young parents, but young parents, teens that kind of put everything on the back burner. So it might be harder to get them engaged, or just kind of lower functioning. And then also the background as a culture dynamic, just because if they weren't raised to thinking developmental aspects were important, they may not feel that they're important. And then just crisis. We deal with a lot of families that have crisis, that could be homeless, or just going through something where they even lose the material and end up, not being able to follow through with the tracking. Predictions, parents will become educated and engage in providing their own monthly milestone tracking with their children, and that we will exceed the 10%. So that's where I put in the materials we'll use, and added in the CDC free milestone app. I haven't looked at that yet. I just learned about that, so I'll take a closer look. And then of course using ETO touch points to track materials that we hand out. Plan, who will implement the change. So myself and the community connector, and then our PEs, Holly, Robin, Jordan, Julian, Megan, and Christina. We are still 1.5 PE short in Muskogee, but that shouldn't be too much of a disruptor moving forward. We're very close to getting that hired. Who's targeted, of course, all of our current families, and then just any prospective families that we pick up in the next 6 months. And probably even after that, we hope to continue this with all of our families. But what increased family involvement and knowledge in the child development, where parents will be engaged throughout the cycle period in each visit. PEs will track on ETO the activity involvement by parents during visits, and again, in the home or virtually. When collect data from ETO over the next 6 months. And then as far as our due, program manager and CC will again develop the educational handouts, fact sheets. PEs will distribute the materials, books and handouts to families, educate parents on milestones and tracking, log findings and participation on ETO. Program manager and CC will continue to check program tracking and collaborate with the analytical team. And I think that's it on our PDSA. And then, is that one showing our change theory?
Yep, it's showing.
Okay. Our heads are in the way. So we have this increased family involvement in child development, increased developmental monitoring and promotion. And so starting with engaging and educating parents and promoting developmental monitoring and milestones, into sharing the fact sheet, PE sharing the LTSAE materials and the CDC milestone app to educate parents. So not only share, but show them how to utilize those. PE modeling how to track developmental milestones during home visits, and then increase as our primary driver, increase family involvement in child development using the materials. And then just went into some, again, the disruptors, all the same ones from the PDSA.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, one question. You mentioned ordering Learn the Signs, Act Early materials.
Yes.
I was just curious, which ones did you order? Do you know?
I don't know. They did a count of how many that we were maybe going to be needing for our families, and I just remember giving a count for that. But I don't know if those
were for the books.
The booklets, okay.
Books, yeah.
The milestone booklets, okay, yeah, and those are great. We recommend those for people, especially if you start working with a child really early on and are going to continue working with the family. For a lot of families that we don't see on a regular basis, we'll just give individual milestone sheets, but those booklets are very good. One other note for everybody, LTSAE is definitely a mouthful. A lot of times we'll actually just refer to Act Early or Act Early materials. So there's just a tip for you to help with that.
I like that better.
That's helpful. I wasn't sure if we should emphasize the Learn the Signs or the Act Early piece. So Act Early is shorter.
Yeah, Act Early is kind of the standard. So for instance, typically Bonnie would be referred to as Oklahoma's Act Early ambassador. And then the national network that the CDC and the AUCD run is they call the Act Early Network. So that is an acceptable usage. That's much less of a tongue twister.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, before we finish up, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page about next steps and where we're headed. The plan over the next month is to finish your PDSA templates and your change theory diagrams. We would ask you to then send them to us so that we can start looking them over. And Lisa will be emailing out doodle polls to schedule August rounding calls. So since this is a new cycle, we will meet with all of the programs. I know sometimes once we're in a cycle, we do every other month. But for this month in August, we will meet with every single program. The goal is to review that PDSA template, review the change theory diagram, solidify exactly what you're doing and what your outcome, process, and disruptor measures are. Once we do that in that meeting and we solidify with your analyst what needs to be measured, we will work with Anira, with ETO, to get everything updated in your touch points. The way it's going to work for this learning collaborative, the father engagement touch point that you were using before at the learning collaborative level, so the one that had those core items on how often dad was doing certain things, that's been deactivated. And we have a new learning collaborative touch point that is called the child development learning collaborative touch point. So that will have those 15 items that I presented today that we're going to ask you to complete every 3 months with your families. And Mira is also going to set ETO alerts so that any family that is eligible and due for another round of that questionnaire, you'll receive an alert saying, please complete with the family, so that it helps you keep track of who is up for another assessment and who's not. So all of those pieces will come into place over the next couple of weeks. We will also work to get your individual PDSA touch point updated. So right now it's still going to have your father engagement items. We will have that hidden or removed, and we will update it with whatever developmental monitoring and promotion items you need added to your PDSA specific touch point. And those are just the questions that are relevant for your program, not across the entire learning collaborative. So those are going to be the 2 touch points that you're going to mostly interface with for this round of CQI. In addition to that, once we get the data coming into ETO, as usual, your analyst will work to put together a data dashboard that they will send you every week so that you can monitor the data coming in. Usually that means early problem solving at the first couple of stages where we see what's coming in, what's not, if there are any issues that we need to resolve. So you can work with your analyst on those pieces as well. And then we will have a monthly call at the end of August where we'll check in, we'll start seeing how things are going with launching this round of CQI. We'll start talking more about child development, monitoring, and promotion, problem solve anything that comes up, and kind of talk through progress. And then the goal is we will finish up this round in the end of winter, so, or the end of the calendar year. So around end of December, And so we would have our next learning session in January. We would like to do it in person. We'll see what happens. Tentatively, it could be in person, but we'll see what the winter brings in terms of COVID. But those are all of the next steps and what's coming up. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was very clear. So if there were any questions, you feel free to ask, and we can go through any questions or issues you might have. So anything that might be helpful to discuss now about any of those points and what's coming up?
Well, and maybe not necessarily what is coming up. I just have a quick question on the survey for the Learning Collaborative. So pregnant mothers are going to be eligible to participate in this?
That's a great question. Actually, Anira just sent us that. And David, I don't think we stipulated if we were going to include pregnant mothers or not. Do you have a thought off the top of your head?
I would lean towards no, and then leave it up to the program. If you wanted to collect it, say, because you've got a PDSA where you are already prepping a pregnant mom on positive parenting practices, no objections here, and we'll look at that data with you if you like. But I think it makes sense that the general policy is we will not administer these to pregnant moms.
Yeah, and that makes sense. If you think about the items, it's asking how often they're engaging in behaviors with their child. So if the child's not born yet, it's going to be pretty challenging to do really any of those, except for maybe talk to the baby or sing songs.
We do have some alternate measures we can loan you if you're interested in gathering positive parenting. I guess we shouldn't call it practices at that point, but intentions, if you will, or knowledge even. So if you ever, I didn't hear any projects like that, but in the future cycles or phases, if you were to develop one that way, and it looks like our C1 folks are on here, so it's very likely maybe they would do that in the future. We have other measures that we can pass along that are used to capture positive parenting constructs prior to the birth of a child.
What other questions? Anything else that would be helpful to talk through? All right. Any final questions, comments before we finish up for today? All right.
I am going to,
yeah.
For my previous question, kind of during the break, Marisol had a question. I'm emailing you a list of some people. I'm also right now, if anybody else is super interested in that, specifically talking about support resources for Spanish-speaking families in the Tulsa area. I only really have one contact that's Tulsa specific, but I have a couple other statewide programs that have some people who might be able to point you in the right direction, even if they don't directly serve Tulsa. So I just posted that in the chat if anybody wants to grab that from the chat now. But Marisol, I'm also emailing that to you. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth. All right, well, thank you everyone for sticking with us throughout the day. We will follow up with the doodle polls to schedule rounding calls and the monthly call. But if anyone has anything in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me, Dr. Bard, Lisa, or any of your analysts. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.